I still remember the sudden chill that seeped into my bones, not from the crisp autumn air of Vermont, but from the unsettling feeling radiating from the man beside me. He called it our writing retreat, a serene escape designed to reignite our creative sparks and, as he put it, reconnect our souls. But as his fingers tightened imperceptibly on the steering wheel, his knuckles a stark white and his eyes darted nervously to the rearview mirror, I knew this wasn't about inspiration. This was about something far more insidious, a meticulously crafted deception hidden beneath a veneer of marital devotion. My heart hammered, a frantic drumbeat against my ribs. A silent alarm screaming that the man I had vowed to spend my life with was leading me not towards a literary sanctuary, but into a premeditated, chilling trap. And I, utterly unsuspecting, was walking straight into it. For years, I believed I had penned the perfect life, a vibrant narrative of modern success. My name is Clara, a best-selling author whose words resonated with millions. And my haven was a sprawling, artfully designed penthouse apartment high above the bustling streets of New York City. From my panoramic windows, the city's skyline stretched like an endless, inspiring canvas, reflecting the boundless possibilities I envisioned for my future. At 34, I was at the peak of my career, creatively fulfilled and seemingly blessed, with a marriage that was the envy of our sophisticated literary and publishing circles. Mark, 38. My husband was the charismatic director of a prestigious publishing house, tall, with an aura of confident intelligence and a smile that could charm any author into signing a contract. He was the embodiment of literary success. In the early days of our marriage, I genuinely felt I had found my muse, my partner in every sense. Mark was attentive, brilliant, and always knew the right words to make me feel cherished, as if I were the protagonist of my own grand romance. Friends would often remark, "Clara, you truly landed a rare gem, a partnership forged in stories." I would simply smile, basking in the warm glow of what I believed was an unbreakable bond. Convinced our love was resilient enough to weather any plot twist, we had fallen in love amidst the hushed reverence of literary events and the vibrant energy of book launches, marrying after 2 intense years of dating. My heart swelled with dreams of a bustling home, filled with the joyful chaos of children's laughter echoing through the spacious rooms. But as the years unfolded, those dreams slowly faded. The endless rounds of fertility treatments, the cold clinical test results, the whispered condolences from doctors, each failed attempt chipped away at my hope. For agonizing years, I endured, exploring every avenue from holistic remedies to advanced medical procedures, only to finally surrender when the last specialist gently advised, "Some stories simply aren't written that way. Embrace the blank pages ahead." In the beginning, Mark had been my unwavering support, healed my hand, his voice a comforting balm. "As long as I have you, Clara, my life's narrative feels complete." Yet I vividly recall the moments he would stand by our living room window, silently watching the neighbor's child playing freely in the park below, his gaze distant, tinged with an unspoken yearning that felt like a quiet ache in my own soul. Everything began to subtly shift after I secured a groundbreaking international publishing deal for my latest novel. What started as a personal passion had blossomed into a global phenomenon, bringing unprecedented financial success and a level of independence I hadn't truly comprehended before. The achievement was exhilarating, but it seemed to cast a strange shadow over our once seamless dynamic. People around us still saw us as the quintessential literary power couple, the glamorous book tours, the extravagant launch parties posted on social media, the effusive well wishes from industry peers whenever I shared an update about my thriving career. All of it felt like a shimmering veil, concealing the growing disquiet within me. Sometimes I wondered if this newfound abundance was quietly eroding the very foundation of what we had built. I'd tried to dismiss these thoughts, attributing them to my own writer's overactive imagination. Mark still projected the image of the ideal husband in public, still offered polite compliments, but I couldn't ignore the subtle, chilling distance that had crept into his gestures. His smiles no longer reached his eyes, and within the lavish confines of our penthouse, I often felt an unsettling sense of isolation. A stranger in my own perfectly crafted life story. I never imagined that the very independence I had cultivated, the success I had worked so hard to write, would be the catalyst that dragged me into a dangerous undercurrent I never saw coming. In the months following the release of my internationally best-selling novel, the changes in Mark became undeniably pronounced. He no longer seemed eager to return home. The cozy, intimate dinners that once defined our evenings were gradually replaced by curt text messages, swamped with proofs. Don't wait up. At first I rationalized it, convinced myself it was merely a demanding phase for his burgeoning publishing empire. But as time wore on, his excuses became hollow repetitions, and a cold dread began to tighten its grip around my heart. Mark started coming home later almost every night. Often, it wasn't until well past midnight that I'd hear his key in the lock. He'd look exhausted, yet I'd catch an odd, almost furtive sparkle in his eyes. On the rare occasions I'd gently inquire, "Is everything all right at the office?" "Honey," he'd offer a strained smile and a dismissive, "Just navigating some complex contracts. Nothing to worry about, Clara." His tone, however, was laced with an indifference that fueled my anxiety. What troubled me most was his phone. Mark, who once left his devices openly on the kitchen island, now guarded his phone with an almost desperate vigilance, was always in his pocket, always face down. When calls came in, he'd abruptly excuse himself. Stepping onto the balcony or retreating to his study, his voice hushed, deliberately avoiding my gaze. He used to share everything with me, mundane work calls, even casual chats with colleagues. Once, when I unexpectedly walked onto the balcony, he startled, quickly ending a call and forcing a calm expression. "Just a new author, a huge deal on the line for tomorrow," he explained. But I had distinctly heard a woman's soft, lilting laugh on the other end. It was certainly not the voice of any author he had ever mentioned. He also stopped sharing our joint financial statements from the publishing house, a practice we had meticulously maintained throughout our marriage. When I asked, "Can you hand me the quarterly royalty reports? I'd like to reconcile our joint earnings," he quickly retorted, "I'll handle it myself. Don't want to mix it up with personal accounts. It's too much hassle." His face briefly contorted with an irritation that genuinely stunned me. It was the first time in our marriage he had shown annoyance when I questioned finances, an area we had always agreed would be completely transparent. I began to feel utterly lost within the confines of my own home. The long evenings I spent, alone in the minimalist living room, watching the distant glow of city lights, were filled with a gnawing question. Is Mark still the man who promised me forever? I clung to the hope that I was overreacting, that I just needed to trust him, to give him space. But night after night, the dark cloud of doubt swelled, refusing to dissipate. One crisp autumn evening, Mark unexpectedly invited me to a major literary awards gala, an event he rarely mentioned anymore. The venue glittered with golden light, a string quartet playing soft classical music. Mark moved through the crowd laughing and chatting, an impeccable facade of normalcy. I tried to immerse myself to push away the creeping suspicions, but then, as I stood momentarily alone near the champagne bar, I overheard a hushed conversation between Mark and a colleague. Mark leaned in, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "The Boston branch acquisition is almost finalized. After that, I'll have more flexibility." The colleague chuckled softly. "You're truly discreet about it. No loose ends, Mark." Mark took a slow sip of his champagne, his eyes flashing with an unreadable mix of worry and excitement. "Don't worry, everything is under control." Boston, I had never heard Mark mention any significant expansion project in Boston. That city was hundreds of miles from New York, certainly not a place he regularly conducted business. My heart pounded. A frantic bird trapped in my chest, struggling to swallow the tidal wave of anxiety that threatened to overwhelm me. I felt rooted to the spot, unable to move. That night on the drive home, Mark's hand rested on mine, still the gentle, admiring husband everyone knew. But I felt no warmth, only a chilling void. I knew then that the doubt festering in my heart could no longer be ignored. I believed I had maintained a semblance of calm, even as Mark's behavior grew increasingly erratic. But then a phone call from my closest friend, Evelyn, reignited the inferno of suspicion I had desperately tried to smother. Evelyn, a sharp-witted veteran editor based in Boston, had been my confidant since our university days. That afternoon, just as I set my teacup down, the phone rang. Her voice, when it came through, was hesitant, but laced with genuine concern. "Clara, I need to tell you something. Last week I was attending a small literary festival in a quiet suburb of Boston. I'm not entirely sure, but I saw Mark." I froze, my grip tightening on the phone. "What are you saying?" My mind screamed for her to be mistaken. I kept telling myself it couldn't be him, but it was definitely Mark. He was sitting in a cozy little bookstore cafe near the university with a blonde woman. She looked younger than you, and they seemed very close. I don't want to jump to conclusions, but it just didn't feel right, Clara. My throat constricted, my heart hammering against my ribs, threatening to burst. I forced myself to remain outwardly calm, thanking Evelyn for sharing her unsettling discovery. That night, I sat by the floor-to-ceiling window, gazing out at the peaceful cityscape, while my mind churned with a maelstrom of questions. Who was that woman? Why was Mark hiding this? And why did everything Evelyn had just described align so perfectly with the unsettling signs I had been witnessing all this time? 3 days later, Mark unexpectedly returned home earlier than usual, an unusually bright, almost manic glint in his eyes. Before I could utter a word, he announced, "Clara, I think we need some time just for us. Let's go to that secluded writer's retreat in Vermont this weekend. I've already booked the most inspiring chalet. We can finally reconnect, truly reignite our creative sparks. What do you say?" I was genuinely taken aback. For over a year, Mark had used work as an impenetrable excuse to avoid any semblance of intimacy or shared creative time. This sudden, effusive offer stirred a complex mix of relief and profound unease within me. I struggled to mask my apprehension with a calm expression. "Are you serious, Mark?" He pulled me into a tight embrace, pressing his cheek against my hair. His voice warm, but with an inexplicable chill beneath it. "You're my muse, Clara. That's all you need to remember." His gaze as he looked into my eyes was deep, yet I glimpsed something in it that felt like a calculated void. The entire night before the trip, I lay awake, my mind a whirlwind of doubt. When Mark finally succumbed to sleep, I slipped silently from the bed. In the dim light of our living room, an impulse, raw and undeniable, seized me. I opened his sleek leather writing satchel, the one he always guarded with such fierce possessiveness, claiming it contained sensitive manuscripts. I hadn't intended to violate my husband's privacy, but an overpowering internal force compelled me to seek the truth. Inside, nestled amongst his personal journals and literary drafts, I found a thick, unassuming file folder with a pale blue cover. My hand trembled as I pulled it out. Legal documentation, last will and testament, Clara Carter. Special provisions, incapacity clause. The printed words on the cover sent a shockwave through my body. My heart hammered wildly as I flipped through the first few pages. Complicated legal jargon and chaotic red-marked annotations that made no sense to me filled the file. But one section, starkly highlighted, caught my eye. Patient Clara Carter. Preliminary psychiatric assessment. Symptoms consistent with delusional disorder. Recommendation: guardianship, and asset management. My vision blurred, the words swirling. Into an unreadable mess, I didn't dare read further. My hands, still trembling, folded the file and placed it back precisely as I had found it. I sank to the polished concrete floor, tears silently streaming down my face, but I dared not make a sound. Suddenly, a torrent of memories flashed through my mind. Mark's increasingly distant stare, the endless late nights, the cryptic phone calls, his chilling words, "Earlier, you're my muse, Clara." That's all you need to remember. I no longer knew what was real and what was a meticulously constructed lie. This trip to Vermont, was it truly a getaway to heal, or was it the chilling prelude to something far more sinister than I could possibly imagine? The trip to the secluded writer's retreat in Vermont began under a deceptive blanket of soft morning sunlight. But the atmosphere inside the luxury SUV was unusually heavy. Mark drove, his eyes fixed on the winding road, yet unable to conceal his tension. He kept glancing nervously at the rearview mirror, so frequently that I finally had to ask, "Is something wrong? Is someone following us?" Mark offered a strained laugh, not turning to look at me. "It's nothing, Clara. I guess I'm just tired, a little on edge. Don't worry." But that hollow laugh no longer offered any reassurance. Throughout the long drive, he took several hushed calls, speaking so softly I could barely distinguish his words. His hands gripping the steering wheel until his knuckles were stark white. I sat beside him in silence, listening to the frantic rhythm of my own heartbeat. Every passing minute amplifying my profound unease. Around midday, we pulled into an old, isolated gas station and convenience store, nestled amidst the vast emptiness of rural Vermont. A faded, creaking sign above the entrance read, "Green Mountains Stop and Go." Mark cut the engine and turned to me, his voice attempting an easy lightness. "Want to go in and grab some coffee or a snack? I'll fill up the tank, then we'll hit the road again." I nodded, my throat suddenly dry, and stepped out while Mark moved towards the gas pump. As he turned his back, ostentatiously checking the rear tires of the car, I felt a brush against my hand. The small folded piece of paper was slipped into my palm. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. I glanced quickly around. A young woman with kind, tired eyes and a faded uniform was walking past, pretending to adjust a display rack. She was Sarah, Mark's former administrative assistant, whom he had abruptly fired months ago under mysterious circumstances. Sarah said nothing, only gave a subtle, urgent shake of her head before moving away. My hands shaking, I unfolded the note, shielding it with my body. The words typed and printed seemed to scream at me. "Clara, you are in danger. Do not trust him. Check your luggage. Look for the printed letter." My heart hammered so violently it felt suffocating, a drumbeat echoing in my ears. My entire body went cold. I took a deep, shuddering breath, desperately trying to steady myself. Mark returned to the driver's side, his voice light, almost breezy. "Go on in and grab something to drink, Clara. I'll finish up here and join you inside." I clutched the note in my trembling hand and walked quickly into the convenience store, my mind a tempest of chaos. Sarah, why would she do this? What did she mean? Check your luggage. Was I truly in mortal danger? Inside the brightly lit store, I feigned interest in the rows of local maple syrup, my eyes darting around. Searching for Sarah, she stood by the coffee machine, discreetly looking at me, her eyes urging me to understand. I hesitated for a fraction of a second, then a deep, primal instinct urged me forward. I bought a bottle of water and went to the restroom. Once inside, I tore open my carry-on bag, frantically searching. Tucked deep within a stack of my own manuscripts, I found it. A single printed letter addressed to Mark from a legal firm in Boston. The contents turned my blood to ice. It was a detailed outline for a fraudulent conservatorship, explicitly citing my supposed deteriorating mental health and a sudden inability to manage personal and professional affairs. It mentioned a fabricated psychiatric assessment, too. Support the claim, ensuring my literary rights and all financial assets would be transferred to a new trust. With Mark as the sole beneficiary, it even explicitly mentioned the secluded Vermont property as an ideal location for the initial phase of assessment and recovery. My vision blurred, the words swirling into an unreadable mess. This wasn't just betrayal. It was a terrifying, calculated plot to erase me. Footsteps sounded from the front of the store. Mark's voice calling out, sharper than usual. "Clara, where are you?" I crumpled the letter in my hand. Sarah appeared at the restroom door, her plea urgent. "You have to decide right now. He's coming. If you go back, you won't get another chance." I took a deep, shaky breath, looking into her sincere, desperate eyes. All those years of love, all those cherished memories now felt like a shattered mosaic beyond repair. I nodded, my voice a barely audible whisper. "Help me get out of here." Mark's voice echoed from the front, no longer carrying any of the false gentleness I had grown accustomed to. I held my breath, my heart pounding as if it would burst from my chest. Every piece of the puzzle in my mind clicked into place. The mysterious calls, the chillingly fake medical assessment, the meticulously planned writing retreat. It was no longer a suspicion. It was the horrifying truth. I ran after Sarah, circling around the side exit of the gas station. Her old beat-up sedan was waiting, engine idling. Sarah flung open the passenger door, urging softly, "Hurry! Don't look back." I scrambled into the car, hearing Mark's furious footsteps pounding behind us. As Sarah's car roared to life, kicking up a cloud of dust, I glanced in the rearview mirror. Mark was sprinting out, his face contorted with pure fury and panic. There was no longer the look of a worried husband searching for his wife, only the enraged face of a man watching his meticulously crafted plan unravel before his eyes. The old sedan sped away from the gas station, leaving Mark behind, a furious, shrinking figure in the distance. I sat trembling beside Sarah. She glanced at me, her voice steadying. "The sheriff's office is only about 20 miles from here. Hang in there, you're safe now." I could only nod slightly, tears silently streaming down my face, the full weight of my shattered reality finally descending upon me. When we finally reached the small, unassuming sheriff's office in the sleepy town of Brattleboro, a kind-faced female officer named Sergeant Evans greeted me. I recounted everything, my voice still trembling, but each word firm with newfound resolve. The urgent letter from Sarah, the horrifying conservatorship papers I discovered, and Mark's increasingly sinister behavior. Sergeant Evans listened intently, her expression shifting from concern to grim determination. "At this point, we can't arrest him based on suspicion alone, Ms. Carter, but we'll file a detailed report immediately. I strongly advise you to request an emergency protective order first thing tomorrow and to consider hiring a top-tier attorney or a private investigator to gather concrete evidence." Sarah, my unlikely savior, then took me to the home of a distant relative of hers, an older woman named Martha, who lived nearby. Martha, a woman with warm eyes and a comforting presence, welcomed me with an embrace I hadn't expected from a stranger. That evening, I called Evelyn, my editor friend, and poured out the entire horrifying story. Without hesitation, Evelyn connected me with a private investigator she trusted implicitly, Dr. Amelia Vance, a renowned specialist in high-stakes intellectual property fraud and matrimonial deception. The very next day, Dr. Vance met me at a quiet cafe in Boston. She was a middle-aged woman with piercing, intelligent eyes, but a voice that exuded a calming authority. "Ms. Carter," she began, her gaze steady. "I'll start by digging deep into Mark Carter's background. My instincts tell me there's something fundamentally false about his identity and his entire life as you know it." Just 3 days later, Dr. Vance called me, her tone grave. "Clara, I need to see you right away. I've uncovered the truth." And it's far more complex than we imagined. At her discreet downtown office, Dr. Vance handed me a thick, unsettling file. On top was a photograph of Mark, standing beside a blonde woman and two young twin children, approximately 8 years old, taken in front of a charming brownstone in Beacon Hill, Boston. She pointed at the picture, her voice devoid of emotion. "Your husband's real name is Mark Anderson. He's had another family here in Boston for the past 10 years. That woman is Chloe Anderson, his legal wife in Massachusetts. And these two children are his." I was stunned into silence. 10 years. That meant when he and I were still newlyweds, when I was pouring my heart into building a life with him, he already had another family, another existence. Dr. Vance continued, her voice grim. "They've been meticulously plotting to take over your intellectual property and assets, Clara. I obtained a warrant to access Mark Anderson's personal and business call records. In the recordings, he frequently spoke with a man named Dr. Stephen Thorne, psychiatrist, about creating a fraudulent mental health assessment for you, preparing to have you declared legally incapacitated. The goal, clearly, was to gain full control of your significant literary rights, royalties, and professional assets." She then presented me with Mark's publishing house bank statements, numerous large payments made to Dr. Thorne, clearly annotated consultation fee for assessment, and legal documentation. My hands trembled uncontrollably as I held those damning papers. Everything was clearer than ever. The man I had loved and trusted with every fiber of my being for all these years was, in fact, an elaborate fraud systematically using my trust, my love, and my success to try and take everything I possessed. Dr. Vance placed her hand gently on the table. Her eyes filled with grim resolve. "Now, Clara, is the time you need the best legal counsel. I can recommend someone who specializes in complex white-collar crime, intellectual property, and matrimonial fraud. We'll work together to protect you and bring Mark Anderson to justice." I drew a deep, ragged breath, my heart aching with a pain beyond words, yet simultaneously ignited by a strange, fierce determination. Even if my past had been built on a foundation of lies, I absolutely would not allow him to destroy the rest of my life. After that pivotal meeting with Dr. Amelia Vance, I knew I couldn't afford to delay another single day. With every ounce of strength I could muster, I picked up my phone and called Evelyn, asking her to connect me with a lawyer powerful enough to help me navigate this brutal legal battle. Without a moment's hesitation, Evelyn introduced me to Cassandra Sterling, a formidable attorney in Boston, renowned for her unparalleled success in high-profile cases involving intellectual property theft and marital fraud. That very afternoon, I met Cassandra at her office's space that, despite its simplicity, radiated an aura of quiet power and determination through the towering stacks of case files piled on her desk. Cassandra listened intently as I recounted my horrifying ordeal, her sharp eyes gleaming with unwavering resolve. "Clara," she stated, her voice calm but firm, "this file, combined with Dr. Vance's findings, is more than enough to charge Mark Anderson with bigamy, fraud, identity theft, and attempted unlawful conservatorship. The absolute first thing we need to do is immediately request a court order to freeze all joint and individual accounts, as well as any intellectual property rights and publishing assets, to prevent him from making any further transactions." With Cassandra and Dr. Vance's swift, coordinated support, I quickly signed all the necessary legal papers. Just 2 days later, the court approved the order to freeze all accounts, literary rights, and real estate assets that Mark had co-owned with me, as well as those connected to his fraudulent identity. Simultaneously, Cassandra officially filed charges with the authorities in both New York and Massachusetts, the two states where Mark had meticulously operated under his dual identities. The storm, I realized, had truly begun. Mark, I was certain, never anticipated that I could act with such precision, such speed, and such devastating decisiveness. 3 days after the legal filings, police forces, working in a coordinated effort across both states, raided Mark Anderson's hidden rental property near the Massachusetts-New Hampshire border, where he had been attempting to lay low after realizing his grand scheme had spectacularly collapsed. He was arrested without incident. Chloe Anderson, his real wife, was also detained for investigation on charges of being a knowing accomplice in his elaborate fraud. I still vividly recall the moment I first stepped into the packed courtroom, my heart hammering against my ribs. My gaze locked onto Mark, led and handcuffed, his once confident, polished demeanor utterly shattered. He looked nothing like the charismatic man who had once stood proudly by my side. His face contorted with bitter resentment when he saw me, sitting there, no longer the trusting, blindly loving wife I once was, but the plaintiff, resolute and ready to stand up and demand every ounce of justice owed to me. The case swiftly captured the attention of the local press. Reporters lined the courthouse steps, flashbulbs popping relentlessly as I appeared alongside Cassandra, but I no longer felt afraid. The only thought in my mind was to bring this suffocating nightmare to an absolute, definitive end. Throughout the grueling trial, which spanned more than 3 months, the mountain of irrefutable evidence Dr. Vance and Cassandra had meticulously gathered left Mark Anderson with no possible avenue to deny his heinous crimes. Recordings of his chilling, shady phone calls, bank statements, meticulously detailing bribes paid to the corrupt psychiatrist. The horrifying forged legal and medical documents about me, photographs of Mark with Chloe and their children, their valid marriage certificate from Boston. Every single piece of incriminating evidence was presented in stark detail to the court. In the end, the verdict was delivered. The judge's voice clear and resonant. Defendant Mark Anderson is hereby sentenced to 9 years in federal prison for bigamy, aggravated identity theft, and attempted financial fraud. Chloe Anderson is sentenced to 4 years in prison as an accomplice to these crimes. Hearing those words, a profound sense of lightness washed over my entire being. I gripped Cassandra's hand tightly, tears silently cascading down my face, not from pain, but from the overwhelming, purifying release of knowing I had done the absolute right thing. Mark didn't look at me once as he was led away, his head bowed. Perhaps in that moment, he finally understood that, in the end, lies can never truly win. With the legal battle finally concluded, I made a life-altering decision. The sleek, minimalist penthouse in New York, once a symbol of my aspirational life, now felt like a gilded cage permeated with false memories. I sold it, along with the remnants of the shared assets and all my regained intellectual property rights. With that capital, I made a decisive move, relocating to a small, picturesque coastal town in Maine. It was a peaceful haven, nestled amidst rugged cliffs and the endless expanse of the Atlantic Ocean. A place far removed from the suffocating urban past and all its painful associations. My new home was a charming, weathered cottage, modest in comparison to my previous abode, with a dedicated writing room overlooking the crashing waves. For the first time in years, I felt an undeniable sense of belonging, a deep connection to the raw, untamed beauty of nature. In the early mornings, I sat on my wraparound porch, sipping hot black coffee, listening to the rhythmic roar of the waves against the shore. The sunlight shimmered on the ocean's surface, a constant, comforting reminder that from this moment forward, I would begin anew, writing a fresh chapter without fear, without confusion, and with a clarity I hadn't known in years. In those initial days in the coastal town of Kennebunkport, Maine, I lived quietly, allowing myself the precious time to finally heal the deep wounds I had so long avoided confronting. Each morning I would sit in my new writing room, gazing out at the endless blue expanse of the ocean, listening to the waves and the cries of seagulls. My mind, once a tempest of doubt, slowly found its calm. I began to write again, not for publication initially, but as a form of personal therapy, pouring my experiences onto the page. One crisp afternoon while wandering through the quaint town center, my eyes caught a flyer posted outside the local community library. Creative. Writing workshop for survivors of emotional trauma. Find your voice. I don't know why, but I stood there for a long time, the words resonating deep within me. That night, sleep evaded me. My thoughts turned to all the other women, like me, who might still be trapped in fear, unable to find a way out of their own personal hells. The very next morning, driven by an unshakable resolve, I went to the community center and signed up for the first time. Standing before a small group of strangers, I began to tell my story. My voice trembled as I spoke of the profound betrayal of the agonizing moment I had to choose between blind love and a horrifying truth. But the more I shared, the lighter I felt. The shining, understanding eyes of the women before me, their sympathetic nods, their quiet tears, all bestowed upon me an unexpected, profound strength. From a participant, I gradually evolved into a facilitator and then a dedicated advocate. Together with other members, I helped organize regular writing sessions, gently guided victims to seek legal assistance, and most importantly, helped them rediscover their inherent worth and their own powerful voices. A worth often systematically stripped away by their abusers. Every time someone shared, "Because of you, Clara," I found the courage to finally write my own ending. My heart swelled with a warmth and purpose I had never known. Amidst these deeply fulfilling days, I maintained a constant connection with Sarah, Mark's former administrative assistant, the young woman who had so bravely saved me at the gas station. Sarah had moved back to her hometown in upstate New York to finish her paralegal degree, and we often exchanged texts, sometimes engaging in long, heartfelt phone calls. In every message from Sarah, there was a sincerity, a genuine kindness, and an uncomplicated honesty that I had never experienced during all those years of my deceptive marriage. One beautiful autumn afternoon, I received a text from Sarah. "Clara, I just graduated. I got my first job at a small law firm nearby. My mom, Mrs. Jensen, wants to invite you to dinner to thank you for trusting me that day. Can you come?" I read the message over and over, a genuine, unbidden smile spreading across my face. The truth was, it was Sarah and her mother who deserved my deepest gratitude, for they had quite literally pulled me from the abyss. That evening, I drove to their home, a small, welcoming house in a quiet, tree-lined neighborhood. Mrs. Jensen, Sarah's mother, greeted me with a gentle smile and a warm, enveloping hug. Dinner was simple, but the air was filled with an easy laughter and genuine conversation. We spoke of the past, of the uncertain future. Sarah excitedly shared her dreams for her new job and her ambition to help victims of fraud. Mrs. Jensen, her eyes brimming with maternal pride, spoke openly about the struggles of raising a child alone and the lingering regret of once watching a loved one be taken advantage of. I sat there, listening, feeling a peace I hadn't known in such a long time. Among these people who shared no blood ties, no common past beyond that one pivotal moment, I found what I had longed for all these years: genuine kindness, sincere hearts, with no hidden agendas. As we said our goodbyes, Mrs. Jensen held my hand, her voice thick with emotion. "Clara, thank you for not turning your back on my daughter that day. 'Cause of you, she's grown so much, become such a responsible young woman." I gently squeezed her hand, speaking from the depths of my heart. It was Sarah who saved me, Mrs. Jensen. And because of that, I learned that real family isn't about blood. It's about those who treat you with all their heart. That night, on my way back to my coastal cottage, I pulled over by the shore, rolled down the window, and just listened to the rhythmic sigh of the waves. The night sky above glittered with a million stars. And I knew with absolute certainty that my life had truly entered a new, boundless chapter. A chapter of freedom, of profound strength, and of immense gratitude for the truly kind souls who had led me out of the darkness. Looking back on my extraordinary journey, I now understand with crystal clarity that what seemed like the deepest, most unbearable pain was, in fact, the undeniable beginning of a new, incredibly meaningful life. From a woman systematically deceived and nearly destroyed, I rediscovered myself stronger, freer, and infinitely more appreciative of life's true, unshakable values. I learned that family isn't necessarily those who share your blood, but rather those who come to you with unwavering sincerity, with open hearts, and with genuine kindness when you need it most. I cherish the memory of that fake conservatorship document, the one that was meant to strip me of my sanity and my assets. Sometimes I imagine it framed, hanging discreetly in my writing room. A silent, powerful reminder that success, truly living a life of purpose and authenticity, is the sweetest form of revenge. It's a testament to the fact that even when the ground beneath you crumbles, you possess an inherent strength, a fierce resilience to rebuild word by word into something far more beautiful and enduring. Today, my writing flourishes. But its purpose has expanded beyond just crafting compelling stories. I now write with a deeper sense of mission, using my voice to illuminate the hidden dangers of emotional manipulation and financial fraud, especially within relationships. My latest book, a memoir detailing my journey, has become a global phenomenon, resonating with women worldwide. Every page, every chapter is penned with intention, a silent invitation to find peace, to reconnect with their inner truth, and to rediscover their inherent power. I travel, giving talks and workshops, sharing my story, not as a victim, but as a survivor, an author of my own destiny. My message is simple, yet profoundly powerful. Trust your intuition, protect your financial and intellectual independence with unwavering vigilance, and never ever allow anyone to diminish your inherent worth. Your inner voice is your most powerful compass. Listen to it. Embrace it. Okay? And when someone tries to silence it, okay, remember that you hold the power to reclaim your narrative. My life now is a testament to resilience, a beacon of hope for others. I am committed to walking alongside those who, like me, once felt utterly lost, guiding them towards their own healing and empowerment. This isn't just my story. It's a blueprint for strength, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, light can be found and a new, more profound purpose can blossom. What do you think of Clara's journey and her incredible path of rediscovery? Share your thoughts below and let us know how her story resonates with you. Don't forget to follow our channel for more inspiring stories about reclaiming your life and building a powerful legacy. Your voice matters, and together we can light the way for countless others